Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to share my thoughts with you on the Panasonic UB820-K Blu-ray player. This is my personal Blu-ray player that I use every day for watching my movie collection, and I believe it's one of the most popular 4K Blu-ray players on the market right now. So I'll be giving you some pros and some cons to this player, as well as discussing some of the features it has, as well as what some alternative options for 4K Blu-ray players are, both that are below the price point of this player as well as above the price point for this player. So starting out, I originally decided to purchase this 4K player based on the positive reputation it has from reviews online, as well as one of the sales that was going on when I purchased my player. So to start out, to discuss some of the pros of this player, some of the best features that it has, this player has support for both main HDR formats, Dolby Vision and HDR10+, as well as support for Dolby Atmos. So with that, there's other players on the market that have those features and support for those formats. But what's unique about this player is it will automatically switch between HDR10+ and Dolby Vision depending on what type of disc you're putting in and what that disc offers. So if you put in a 4K Blu-ray that has HDR10+, it will use that. If you put in a Dolby Vision formatted 4K disc, it will automatically switch and play in Dolby Vision. That's a great feature to have if you have discs that have both of those formats and your TV supports both of those formats. So that's a big plus for this player. In addition to that, the player also offers HDR optimization depending on what type of TV you have. So if you go into the settings, you can put that either an OLED TV or an LCD TV, LED TV, and it will format what kind of HDR it's putting out to what's best for that type of TV. And I, for example, have an LG C1 OLED, and so I just put OLED in that setting, and then it will optimize the picture for that type of TV. In addition to that, it has great upscaling for DVDs and 1080p Blu-rays. So even when I put in a DVD from many years ago, it will upscale that to 4K resolution to the best of its ability. And then same with Blu-rays. The Blu-rays will be upscaled to 4K as well. When I originally purchased this player, maybe like a year ago or something like that, it didn't upscale DVDs to 4K, upscaled them to 1080, but through a software update, it now upscales DVDs all the way up to 4K, which is great. In addition to that, there is also lots of streaming service apps available on the player if you want to use your Blu-ray player for that. And then they also have the ability to play audio and video off of USB, using the USB port on the player. And I will say, while there's other 4K players and even regular Blu-ray players that will upscale to the 4K resolution, this one does an especially good job of it. So this player has the same hardware as Panasonic's more expensive UB9000 player in terms of video quality and video upscaling, so it's a great value in that regard. Now, in terms of some of the cons of this player, some of the issues I've had with this player, I want to kind of share my experience in that regard as well. So I've actually had this player 3 different times. So I originally purchased a kind of like a refurbished or returned version of this player through Amazon Warehouse, which was a mistake. I got that player and it had multiple issues, including it wouldn't play certain discs properly. They'd be very pixelated even if the disc was brand new or clean. There was also some disc read errors happening. So I ended up returning that because of the issues I had with that player, and then getting a replacement player brand new from Best Buy when it was on sale. And I was able to get a great deal on that second Blu-ray player. I got it for $300 on sale when normally these go for about $500 typically. And that second player was great at first, and then it started to have some of the same kind of issues as the first player I had. It had 4Ks and I think primary 4Ks were getting this pixelated effect where they kind of freeze up, and then you would see like pixelation on the screen. And then there would also be issues where, primarily with regular 1080p Blu-rays, it just wouldn't properly read the disc. You would have an error message saying it couldn't read the disc, or that the disc couldn't be played on that player. And it was hit or miss with different movies in my collection whether that would happen or not. So one thing I tried was upgrading to a newer HDMI cable that's certified HDMI 2.1 for up to 8K, and that helped with some of my disc in terms of the pixelation effect that was happening with 4K Blu-rays, but it still had the disc read errors with 1080p Blu-rays. So I ended up returning that second player to Best Buy and getting a third player as a replacement under the return policy that Best Buy had. And that's the player that I have now, and as of right now, it hasn't had a single problem since I've gotten it a couple weeks ago. So what I learned is that for one, these players are very finicky when it comes to 4K discs. If there's any kind of smudge or damage to a 4K disc, it will have problems playing in this player. I've had multiple times where I've had a disc have issues in one of these Panasonic players, but then I put it in my PlayStation 5 and then there's no issue playing it. It just seems like it's extra sensitive to any kind of damage to the discs, and certain movies it has a harder time playing or something like that. Also though, there's a couple other cons I wanted to point out more in general that don't have to do with kind of issue with the player, but are things I think that could use improvement. One is this is the remote for the player, and it's not a backlit remote. I would think for a player this price they could have put a backlight on the remote. That would have been convenient, but otherwise it's not a bad remote. Just wanted to mention that. It just seems like there's also kind of bad quality control with building these players. As I mentioned, the second one I got was a brand new player, and it still had some of the same issues I had with the returned player from Amazon. So with that in mind, I still think this is a great player. You just unfortunately may have to go through purchasing and returning it multiple times to get one that was manufactured properly and doesn't have issues. So with that in mind, I wanted to share some alternative players that you can consider as well, depending on what your needs are and what your budget is. So first of all, if you already have a game console like a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series X, those have 4K Blu-ray players built into them because that's how they play the modern games. And those are not bad. The PS5 is a great, reliable 4K Blu-ray player. But with that being said, it doesn't have all the features that a player like this Panasonic player would have, such as Dolby Vision. It also won't have the same quality of upscaling of DVDs and Blu-rays as a Panasonic player like this would. It will still upscale those. It just won't look as good as a standalone player would. In addition to that, you can consider a player like the Sony X700. It's much cheaper than the player that I'm reviewing here. It has a lower price point. I typically see it around $150, $200. And that player does have support for Dolby Vision and HDR10+, although it won't switch between them automatically. You have to manually switch between them depending on what movie you're watching. It also has a reputation for freezing and skipping with larger 4K discs that have multiple layers. So that's another thing to consider if you watch a lot of 4Ks. It's not the ideal player for that. It will work. Or if you mainly just want an upscaling player, it could be good for that. But it is known for having more issues than this player that I'm reviewing here. So another one you can consider would be the Panasonic UB420. It's very much similar to this player. It just doesn't have support for Dolby Vision. So if your TV doesn't support Dolby Vision or that's not important to you, that could be a great player to consider. That's cheaper as well. It's probably half the price of the 820. If you wanted to go towards a higher end player, maybe from another brand or just that offers a little bit more, for one, you can consider the next step up with Panasonic's players, the UB9000. This player is not as popular because it doesn't offer much more than the 820, but it has double the price. It typically goes for about $1,000, and it has the same exact video processor as the 820 does. It just has a few extra audio options and a more solid build. It's a much more durable frame that they've built into that player. So a lot of people would say it's not worth the extra $500, but some people still choose to purchase that player for the couple things it does offer. If you wanted to go with a more expensive player from a completely different brand, if you don't want to purchase a Panasonic player, one of the best alternatives out there would be the Magnetar UDP-900 player. That player does go for $2,500, but it would likely be a step up in most areas in terms of picture quality, sound quality, build quality. So that's more of a substantial upgrade over all these other players if you wanted to have one of the best players on the market. So that's kind of my review, my thoughts, and my experience with the Panasonic 820. And I would still recommend giving this player a try, but I just wanted to kind of put it out there that you can have some issues with this player. It is very common. If you go on like Reddit forums, you'll see a lot of other people have had these similar issues, and it's unfortunate because there's not a ton of 4K Blu-ray players to choose from on the market right now, but my recommendation is give it a try if it's within your budget. If you want something that's a little more affordable, maybe consider something like a PlayStation 5, or if you already have one, that's great too. Or if you want a higher end player, I think the best on the market is probably the Magnetar UDP-900. So I hope this was helpful. Like this video and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this and hear more about collecting physical media and setting up a home theater. And I'll see you again soon.